Hi there, welcome to the Digital Insurance Pint podcast. As always, I'm your host, Tom Reed, and I'm joined by Adam Mitchell, CEO of Mitchell & Whale, Steve Earle, CEO of Cheap Insurance, and Jeff Roy, CEO of Excalibur Insurance. And today we are joined by Theo, who is the co-CEO of Acturis. And Theo, maybe you can start off by explaining what you do at Acturis and what the heck is a co-CEO?
Just a bit of background. We started Acturis pretty much from my basement where I am 20 years ago, and have built it up into a reasonably sized company today. We have about 850, 870 colleagues in 6 countries now. Myself and my partner, who we founded the business and still run it today, we were both partners at McKinsey & Company in London, where I ran the insurance practice and he ran the e-commerce practice. And actually, we found that our experience from McKinsey was that working in a partnership in a sort of collegiate way was kind of what we felt was appropriate. And so we didn't really have a problem about co-running the company. And we've done that now for going on 20 years. And the good thing is that you don't get lonely and you always have somebody to bounce ideas off and kind of talk through issues, which I find very useful. And what do I do? I don't know. It's a bit of everything, and you kind of get involved in most things when you're running a company, particularly when you've started it from scratch. In the beginning, I did every single thing, I guess. And today we're basically running the company. We have 6 divisions, and I'm particularly active in starting out our Canadian venture. So that's kind of my main focus. My colleague does the same in France.
Awesome. Well, as the newest entrant to the Canadian BMS marketplace, I say welcome on behalf of the team.
Oh, thank you.
All right, so we're going to do our speed round here to get to know you a little bit better.
Okay.
Can you name your favorite Canadian band of all time?
I think Alanis Morisset is not a band, I admit, but she is Canadian, if I've got my bearings right. And family favorite.
Okay, he's approved.
Isn't that ironic, don't you think?
Yeah. All right, so which beer are you drinking there?
I am having a Camden Pale Ale. The brewery's actually down the track, and it's tasting pretty good.
Okay, moving on here. What was your high school nickname?
Actually, it was Duke, based on my surname. Nobody's called me that for probably the best part of 25 years.
Welcome to Canada, Duke.
Yeah.
All right, name one of the 7 dwarfs.
Dopey.
Good choice.
Doc. Yeah.
All right. No need to over deliver here. Just one. I just don't want to.
Okay.
And final speed round question here: how many Netflix series have you watched since March?
Probably a good 5. Queen's Gambit, high up there.
Oh, really good.
And of course the Crown. Who doesn't watch the Crown? Series 4.
We're going to get into some more in-depth questions here, though. Maybe Adam, I'll pass the talking stick over to you.
Yeah, so it's pretty big news. There's probably not a bigger file in our little world. It leads to the first question of why the heck did you buy Power Broker?
A couple of years ago now, in 2012, we had developed our position in the UK to a point where we had a pretty big share of the market in the UK. And we were looking at internationally what could we do, and we our first country that we focused on was Germany, and in 2012 we made an acquisition and followed that up with another acquisition. And what we found was that for us to build that position in Germany, it was particularly important to get some local knowledge and customers and a good sort of understanding of the market. And today in Germany, we have 55% of the market on the broking side and about 90-odd% on the comparative rating side. the Canadian market's a pretty interesting market. It's got very similar characteristics to what we saw in Germany. And we think that we could add some value to the market from what we've learned and done in the UK. So we felt that it was really important to get a local kind of base and a partnership here. And fortunately, Zycomp or Power Broker has become part of Acturis now. The sort of strategy is to both continue to develop Power Broker and at the same time introduce the Acturis software as a service platform into the Canadian market.
Theo, you mentioned rating. You're up to like 90% of rating.
Yeah. On the comparative rating side.
Yeah. So in Canada, not that you don't know the marketplace, but there's a little bit of a monopoly here on that. Are you going to take that head on?
The Canadian kind of model is that you use a BMS, a comparative rater, and a CMS. Those are sort of the three building blocks. Now in the UK, that's not the model. The model is to have one platform. Acturis in the UK, if a broker uses Acturis, it's their BMS, it's their CMS, and it's the comparative rater, all in one. That's our model, and that's exactly what we intend to do in Canada.
Like Canada, we have standards, we have CoCEO, but the adoption rate and the implementation and keeping people in the same version has been challenging. How have you found the UK connecting, or in Germany, maybe contrast the two versus Canada, now that you're trying to hook everything up and get into CoCEO?
Yeah.
How do they contrast between Canada, Germany, and the UK for using standards and being able to work with the different bodies?
Yeah, so the UK has had standards in place for many years now on personal lines, on motor and home. There's been standards in place, and they've had that in place for a couple of decades actually now. And there's a group called the ETPG, the Electronic Trading Practice Group. That's kind of a mutual organization, and that promulgates the standards and pushes them forward with new versions and things like that. And that works pretty well. Now, on commercial lines, there wasn't any standards. There were absolutely none. So it was a sort of free for all. And then what happened was that as we started to enter the market and start to promote electronic trading, not only in personal lines, but in commercial lines, there was a need for standards, and a body called iMarket formed, which is effectively owned by all the insurers. And iMarket, together with ourselves and some of our colleagues in the market, drove the standards. And now most insurers' products are built to an iMarket or an ETPG standard, depending on whether they're commercial or personal line. And we've looked at the CoCEO standards, and we think that's a great baseline. And in Germany, the equivalent would be an organization called BiPro.
And have you found the insurers that you connect with are all very willing to use, they're all very standards focused and they adopt it willingly? Or do you have some companies that don't, and you have to find out solutions to translate?
If you're talking about the UK, some insurers are hamstrung by their enterprise systems. And what one has to do is figure out ways of bypassing that through translation mechanisms, so that from a broker's perspective, all they see on Acturis is electronic trading and quotes coming through, which they can bind, do midterm adjustments or changes and renewals, all electronically on the system.
In our world, in Canada, Applied is the 900-pound gorilla that has most market share for rating, and then a massive market share for BMS. So for you guys to be coming, when you're the 900-pound gorilla in another marketplace, and now you're coming to put an all-in-one solution together, it's going to be some exciting times.
We're pretty psyched about the project, and we think there's a real good opportunity to give people a credible alternative.
Can I become a Power broker today, or do I have to buy Acturis?
No, you can for sure buy Power Broker. It's a low-cost platform that is very, very stable and functionally rich. And we think for different segments of brokers, it serves a real good purpose.
Could I buy Power Broker and just use Power Broker as my hub and spoke model? Would you introduce, easy APIs to it, and I can continue to use the things around it at a lower cost that I'm maybe paying with other suppliers? And then that begs my next question is, what's the price points difference between doing that or just Power Broker and the full Acturis?
Yeah, so Acturis is a kind of different proposition in that, as I mentioned, it's a sort of all-in-one multi-tenant software as a service platform. So we host one instance of Acturis, and all the brokers in the UK log on to use this one instance of it. You're paying for the hosting, the DR, the multiple environments, the production environment, the comparative rating, the CMS, all of that. It's one fee. In Canada, these fees are sort of split out and can add up to quite a lot. Now, for Power Broker, that is not a software as a service platform. It's hosted by either the broker or a third party on the broker's behalf. So it's a kind of different deployment model and setup, and that's obviously priced a little differently. I might add that the Power Broker pricing is pretty attractive. It's by far and away the lowest priced product in the market.
So am I hearing loud and clear that you're going to continue on a path of these two sort of siloed visions of giving a broker's option of the Power Broker the way that is, and the wholly hosted, that's the way to see it. And there'll be more and more services that we can have in a common framework. So for example, our CoCEO download service from the CoCEO mailbox, it's going to be the same. It's going to service the Power Broker clients and the Acturis clients, and that's great. And there'll be more and more of those things as we introduce rating and portals and things like that.
Kind of run us through kind of the segments of what Acturis has got and how you've woven that together and what we can kind of expect here in Canada.
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned, it's a multi-tenant SaaS platform, and that SaaS platform is entirely web service enabled. So that enables you to run a number of sort of channels, if you like, at the front end. One channel may be the core Acturis screens that brokers use 9 to 5. Another one might be your customer service portal that you're offering to your customers, or quote and buy websites. Another one may be a mobile app, and all of these channels use exactly the same web services. It's like using Acturis. So client handler, say a CSR, may be sitting at home on their mobile app, and they're using Acturis as if they were on a call screen. Our philosophy has always been that you can interchange your channel. So you can start off on a website, for example, and then maybe a call center operator will take over that case and then process it through with a sort of seamless experience.
In terms of the data, in terms of all the touch points around the experience, do you manage things by case numbers or by the policy level in your SaaS service, or how do you collect the data by client? Okay.
Yeah, it's a very client-centric approach.
Is there, just quickly on the marketing side, is there any need to buy something like Marketing Cloud from Salesforce, or do you have the marketing front end, like in front of the journey?
We have a CRM module that we're continually updating, and there I'd say it's horses for courses. We've got some brokers who pretty hot in Salesforce and use it, or Microsoft Dynamics, and we've integrated both of those platforms into Acturis. Or some others are quite happy to use Acturis. We do have things like Brief Your Market, which is a batch emailing and analysis tool. And we're integrating to Pathway for the Canadian market as well. But those are things we'd probably do anyway.
When you think of the 4 sort of incumbent BMSs in Canada, they all seem to have a fairly distinct target broker segment in mind. Where do you see playing in that market? Like, are you going to go broad brush? Are you going to go after certain segments first? Like, what's how do you think you're going to attack the Canadian market?
Well, 20 years ago or 15 years ago, I would have said, we're going to attract the smaller brokers. And the world's changed. We tend to have a number of congregations of users, and a SaaS platform offers different propositions to each one of those sort of segments, if you like. So the small brokers tend to like it because it's a SaaS platform. You don't have to host anything. There's a box tick about regulatory and compliance issues, and all your integrations are ready to go. Now, the consolidators use it because it's scalable, and you can consolidate, push the acquisition very quickly onto Acturis, and institute a sort of standardized set of processes that make it very efficient to consolidate. And then another congregation, it would be networks. So a network is a network of brokers. The network could be a company, and sometimes it's a sort of a mutual organization. And the network comprises of a network of independent brokers who band together to get some buying power. And we have a ton of networks who use Acturis, and all their members use Acturis, and that allows them to have the information accessible to be able to go to an insurer and say, I've got 100,000 shops, so let's cut a deal for that. Or I've got, X risks in a particular segment across the network. So it's incredibly powerful.
Okay, great. There's a few brokers in existing Canadian networks who'd probably be perking up their ears at that particular point, including maybe at least one person on the conference right now.
Yeah, 1 or 3.
1 or 3. That's right.
I think it's often called a cluster here in Canada, or you have brokers clustering together. So we've gone through a pretty nice background of theoretical foreplay of exciting things that could be coming. So what's happening for 2021? What's Acturis bringing to the fight?
So 2021, it's heads down, working on introducing the SaaS platform into the market. So we're doing quite a lot of country layer things like taxes, CoCEO download, which we don't have in the UK. And then at the same time, we're starting to market to different brokers and continuing development on Power Broker as well.
So these broker networks, one of their benefits, I guess, is they can create an MGA on your platform and everybody could share.
All of them have in the UK.
Yeah, because that would not only are you sharing data of how many you said 100,000 shops and the data to approach the market, but you actually can create your MGA and integrate it and use it, right?
Yeah, and the other thing is with a multi-tenant SaaS platform like Acturis, you can create common services. So, for example, some members don't want to do client collections or insurer reconciliations and payments. So you can have a centralized area that does it on behalf of the members who are interested in using that service.
Question: in the UK, do you have standard industry code, the SIC codes? And
yes.
and I'm not sure, are they much different in the UK than North America? Are they the same? I didn't know if you had much configuration you had to do to kind of Canadianize the Acturis system from the UK.
Yeah, so we have 2 sets of industry codes in the UK. There are SIC codes, and the Association of British Insurers has developed their own industry code classification. And they did that because they found that the SIC codes didn't really look at things from an insurable risk and a sort of a risk assessment perspective. So, for example, are you doing plumbing with heat or without heat? It makes a difference in terms of the risk assessment. So the industry code should ideally have some kind of reference within it. And so most of the insurers, particularly in the standards that I talked about earlier, are using the Association of British Industry trade codes and not the SIC codes. But some insurers do use the SIC codes in their core enterprise systems. And if they do, we do a translation between the ABI and the SIC code.
Next 5 years, you guys have seen what's happened in the UK. You've got a sense of what's going on in Canada now. Give me your top 1 to 3 trends that you think will transform the Canadian P&C industry in the next 3 to 5 years?
Okay, so here's my question for you guys, for the 3 brokers on the podcast. What percentage of your policy count that you have on your system today is linked to the identical record in the insurer system?
0.
0. Okay.
0.
Adam,
I answered for everybody.
Okay, so it's 0. So what that means in simple terms is that I've used my BMS to get a quote, to bind the risk, to do changes, and to do renewals. So that record, whenever I pick
and
that
all
record
the records stay in sync all the way up.
I make a change, and that change is
already answered,
replicated
Adam.
real time
Oh,
in the
listen.
insurer system.
Listen,
0.
Papa Steve, you're right,
0.
but occasionally the rest of us have to catch up to your brilliance. So kudos. 1 point for Steve. Welcome to the board.
If I looked at the entire Acturis broker base in the UK, we have, in rough terms, say 40-50% of the brokers in the UK. And if I looked at across Acturis, all those brokers, 50% of their policy count is electronic. 50%, 1 in 2. It's huge. The impact is absolutely massive because, if you need to make a change, you can just make that change, click submit, it's off to the insurer, comes back with a rate, can be accepted without having to go to a portal and then get a CoCEO down.
Okay, so Theo, that's the Canadian holy grail, right? Like that we've been working on forever. How does Acturis show up and all of a sudden, boom, it's there?
No, well, it's not Acturis. It needs to happen because you've got a pressure on expenses. You've got a consolidation issue, and for guys who really aren't that interested in consolidation, they've got to get super efficient because and this is the only way to do it is to make things much more electronic.
So you really haven't bought a ticket on the Canadian insurance company excuse train yet and gone on a ride there.
We've seen Steve. We've seen
it goes all through the mountains, and all through the prairies, coast to coast. It's a long ride. So I really hope that. Yeah, no, that'd be awesome.
Well, and one of the big debates too is which version, our version on our system or the company's is the current version, right? And that's where the real-time policy change has been a holy grail because of which version's which. Well, the renewals happen. We can't figure out what's renewal, what's new over that 645 days when 2 policies are in play. So those are a lot of things that have hamstrung us for 20 years that very few people, if anybody, have solved in terms of straight-through processing on policy change, right? And as you said, the exact electronic version of both matching and replicating has not happened in Canada.
When we started, that figure was, it wasn't 0, but it certainly wasn't 50%. It was like 5%.
So Theo,
over the last sort of 10 or 15 years, we've seen it move from 5 to about 50%.
If you could make that my world tomorrow, you could send me a contract for e-signature tonight and I would sign it. What's reality insofar as when you're going to be able to make things happen in Canada that look like they do in the UK and so forth?
Reality is you have to work as you've just mentioned with the insurers, but you've got to work with the insurers in a way that the guys can do what they can do, and you've got to recognize that and kind of be creative about thinking through alternatives.
Have you run into any, we'll call them sort of hoggy, selfish insurers with their APIs and things that are hard to get along with? You know, who won't
Not yet, no.
really. Okay,
No,
well,
it's early days. Like, it's early days for us.
Okay.
We're,
Welcome to Canada.
Yeah, you parachute into Canada, and you think you can get 25% electronic in 5 years? Is that a number like that? The metric you just announced doesn't even exist in Canada right now. You just unleashed a new term in the world because nobody's ever heard that term and applied that way. You know, we've all had our minds stretched, and once it's stretched, it doesn't go back to its original size and think the same way. So that's a good bomb you dropped on the industry in Canada right here in the podcast, which is awesome. But it'd be interesting to think what you think you can do in 5 years in Canada. It didn't happen overnight in the UK, obviously.
Certainly didn't.
When was your first year that you had 1% electronic and ramp us up to getting 50%? When did you start tracking that metric, and how did you ramp up, and how long did it take you in the UK?
Well, it's taken us 20 years to get
20 years.
to. Yeah. I mean, we started in 2001. And 20 years later, we're at about 50%. You know, if you look at Germany and if you look at France, all the countries are on this sort of glide path, if you like, and they're all at different stages. So in Germany now, we've started to see the first end-to-end transactions with APIs, BiPro-enabled APIs in Germany, and that's just starting to take off there. On personal lines, but it'll happen on commercial soon. You know, we've already working with 2 insurers in Canada who've got what we call full cycle APIs. That for us, that's the sine qua non. We have to try and work on that basis, because in the UK, a broker doesn't really want to have an API just for quotes or new business. They want this whole process to be electronic, so that the policy stays electronic through the life cycle of the policy. That means that you have to have integrations in place with the insurers, not only for quote and new business bind, but for change and renewal and even cancellation.
To me, that's the thing that holds us back from recapturing market share from directs. We're clunky. We're very difficult to deal with. So if we can remove that friction, can we take it back? And have you seen that experience in other jurisdictions?
Unquestionably, we've seen that. We've seen that in Germany, and we've seen that in the UK as well.
Nice.
In fact, the direct insurers in the UK have lost market share to brokers and to aggregators who have brokers underlying them. And that's because consumers fundamentally want choice.
Tell me more about that piece with aggregators, because we're not big fans here.
The aggregators are a mixed blessing. If you ask most brokers, do you like the aggregators? Some would say yes, and some would say no. 60%, if I'm correct, maybe even higher, it might even be 70% of all motor new business now goes through an aggregator.
We're seeing some insurers pull out of aggregators because they're being selected against, and they're seeing brokers writing better business.
Yeah. And you have a different issue in the UK with the dual pricing issue, where on a new piece of business, the same insurance company will drop it 35% to get it and then renew it at a different price. So a huge problem down there. And people have been, unfortunately, your market in the UK has motivated people to shop every year. You've created kind of your own worst nightmare in the UK. It has not translated into Canada, luckily. Like we're different. I don't know if it'll ever go quite to that level. People still value advice, but if companies start playing games where they're going to give you a 25% less price to get you and then jack your price up, then we're going to run into some more UK problems. So I think we got a little bit of time, as long as we don't, as long as we can learn from what didn't, the negative of the aggregator in the UK, right?
If the broker has a very good electronic process, you can offer the same sort of client experience as a direct insurer, but with the added benefit of choice. And that I think is very compelling.
Some carriers are able to do this natively, connect real-time natively. Some need some sort of middleware, some help to get there. Presumably, so that means to me that there's quite a spectrum of capabilities from an insurer's perspective. Have you seen brokers migrate more towards those carriers than those who are, who are keeping the friction in the system, so to speak?
We've certainly seen the benefits of real-time electronic links in personal lines. And now for most insurers, if they don't have that, they get selected again. In commercial, the jury's still out. The enrichment isn't as sophisticated yet, but as that takes hold, exactly the same thing will happen.
I guess my sense was, and I'm glad to hear you kind of confirm that, my sense was that brokers will, just like customers, will naturally gravitate to an environment where there's less friction and more opportunity. And then so that there's, if there's a choice between I have multiple things I can do with less friction and multiple things I can do with more friction, I'm going to go with the easier one because I can still do my, do the work my client needs. So I'm glad to see that experience is there, because that's kind of the hypothesis in Canada, because we do have a spectrum of carriers here as well. We've got, a small but growing number of carriers who are investing quite heavily into broker digitization, some who are starting that journey and some who are not there.
It starts out looking as if it's going to take quite a long time. And as a couple of carriers start to get their act together, you'll find that there's a sort of snowball effect that picks up, because there is an element of selection underlying the guys who don't have that integration in place.
Just beyond the, I'm going to place business here instead of there, and they'll see their numbers eventually. Is there another role brokers can play to kind of hurry along the carriers?
Brokers underestimate how powerful their voice is with insurers. I can talk to insurers till I'm blue in the face and say, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. And it's not as powerful in my experience as any broker showing up to that insurance saying, you guys are going to lose my business unless you do this.
See, the difference on that in Canada is that we all say that and never do it.
I feel, and I probably get 3 nodding heads, but I feel like I'm talking to a time traveler, right? He's seen the future and he's come back to gift us with this vision. Stay with me for a second. So if the broker land, if there was a broker land and somebody was running for, president, on this platform, the brokers are starving for this sort of thing. And here you come to tell me that the automobile is here and I don't got to shovel horse poop anymore. How can we help facilitate that getting here?
Loud voices, with the insurers being a bit demanding, and then working in concert in things like IBAC, I think are very powerful. The other thing is standards, and you guys certainly raised the question beforehand, but standards are essential to this whole thing. This transformation doesn't take place unless there are sort of standards in place that are more or less adhered to.
Love it.
Yeah, me too. It's the most painful experience that a brokerage can go through is moving a BMS.
Yeah.
What do I do right now? And if I listen to this and I like what I hear, how long do I wait? What do I do? Why? Or
when's
what?
Christmas? When do we unwrap the present?
Well, that is a good question.
And what kind of volume do you need? So do you need Steve, Adam, Jeff, and the top 10 digital brokers in the country to go to Acturis? You'll get heard if you do that. What's it going to take? I love what I'm hearing, by the way.
That's pretty much when we started Acturis in 2001. That's pretty much what we did. We had about 5 really progressive brokers who we call development partners, who basically worked with us, and we did joint visits to the insurers and worked out standards and how things needed to
Why don't
work.
we do that?
You're talking to the right guys here.
Steve can't stand up for a while. He's pretty excited.
It's not what he's going to do. He's already done it. It's not vaporware. He's already done it.
Yeah, exactly.
Two other
Jeff.
countries.
It's not vaporware.
It's actually done. It's not vaporware, right?
It's very, very interesting hearing what you guys say. And I have to say that this conversation is like no different to a conversation that we would be having with brokers in the UK. A lot of the same things, but I guess the guys are just at a different point in the path of development. But so yeah, thank you very much for having me on the podcast. It's been a real pleasure.
Awesome. Well, let's first off, we need to have a quick salute here. So Theo, cheers. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
appreciate you coming on the show.
Cheers. Thank you, Theo.
Thanks, Theo.
And Theo, we also need to quickly thank Gore Mutual and Crew as our sponsors, as well as WIC, who is our charity partner. And as always, Theo, I'm going to give you the last word. So you got the mic. Tell us anything you haven't told us yet, and kind of take us to close here.
Well, I think I've kind of preached enough on electronic trading. We're very passionate about it. Have quite a lot of experience of that, and we see that being critical in the market for both personal lines and, importantly, commercial as well. And I think a transition is certainly achievable, and we've seen this in a number of geographies. So it's not a dream, but it does take a bit of commitment, both from brokers and importantly insurers as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much. That's fantastic. Thank you again, Theo. Appreciate
Thanks,
your time.
Theo. Great to meet you.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
That was an amazing chat, and we could have gone on another half hour for sure.
Well, isn't it refreshing to see something else like this coming? It was sort of important to me to get him in. I've never met him. Like, I've known
he's
about
blowing my mind. It's blowing my mind.
They're not bragging, right? Like, they've done this. They've dominated other whole countries and beat up on other incumbent vendors because it makes sense. You build a better mousetrap, and the world will beat a path to your door. I mean, this is going to be some really interesting times coming.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Steve, unfortunately, we interviewed him. They're probably still a few months away, multiple months.
It's okay.
Yeah. You got about,
okay.
I would say
I have time.
I would say you got about a good 8 to 10 month runway when they're really going to hit the ground. But love the lingo, like the whole term invisible touch API. Like, to the broker, whether they're using APIs or we're using a translator, it's invisible to the broker. His whole thing of 50% electronic, I think that term blew our mind. Like, what do you mean electronic? And then he explained it. And he's like, well, we have 50% of our stuff where our policies match the insurer, and we can actually do stuff. 50%. We're at 0 right now.
Or the MGA angle of the like, hey, well, you guys are big enough. It's just assumed that you turn on the MGA button. Why didn't you turn on your MGA button? It's like, what the fuck is an MGA button? Okay, this is great.
And I love the term, let's show up with some development partners. Development partners. You're actually partners. You're not a stakeholder.
What's the second word there?
Yeah, partners. Like, we're actually going to do this together.
And you want my opinion? Yeah. You care what I said?
Yeah. Like it's very refreshing. And there's a reason why, they're dominating Germany. They're dominating the UK. It's not by accident. It's because they're dialing it in. They're solving what's needed to be solved. They're using standards. They're getting everything connected. And they're making it simple. They're giving brokers tools they need, right? Pretty cool.
I can't fucking wait for them to start kicking ass. God.
So, that was quite something. I mean, and it's interesting. Well, I think it's a validation of stuff we've been talking about, separately and together for a number of years now. Is that there's huge efficiencies to be gained for brokers with real-time connectivity. I think that's always been the hypothesis, right? Is if you can be as frictionless as a direct writer, and then you add in the choice and advocacy and independence part, your proposition as a broker blows everybody else out of the water.
Steve's getting angry. Getting angry.
And case in point, it's already happening over there.
Yeah.
Steve's getting angry.
Steve's getting angry.
We're gonna put you in Incredible Hulk mode. Turn you green.
Yeah.